Well, Strobel News fans, welcome to the first ever MRN podcast. I've been going over the idea for some time now, deciding whether or not I want to do a small podcast talking about certain issues that doesn't require all the technical capability of a whole video, or maybe even don't really require a whole video in general. So let me do the very first one on the situation in France right now. As pretty much everybody has seen, there's a whole situation exploding. There is violence left and right. Police are coming down on people. People are coming down on the police. And a lot of this, anger towards real injustices that have been carried out against the people of France. Of course, ones that can hardly be compared to those that France has carried out against third world countries. But I definitely see something that's going on here. A lot of people seem to be under a really false impression about what's going on right now. A lot of people are running around saying, "Oh, this is it. It's the second French Revolution. This is our uprising. This is the moment when we're going to strike against the capitalist class and create that second French Revolution." Since I'm always the bearer of bad news, one that's frequently not listened to, I'd have to say, that's not the situation here. This is not a revolution. This is not something where a wave of change is coming and a vanguard party has organized, a revolution against the state. What's really going on right now in France is an outburst of popular anger. It's not a revolution. The significant difference here is that there will not be a destruction of the bourgeois state and socialism installed. What's going to happen is that the police are going to brutally repress people as much as they can until the politicians decide that it's not going to work or it's going to make them look bad enough in the eyes of the international community. And then they're going to offer them some concessions. That's what they're going to do. They're going to give them some kind of token gesture. Maybe out of this, when the violence stops, some guy who's progressive will get elected. But that's at best. This is not going to be a revolution. A lot of people are comparing this to the spirit of '68, to the events that took place in France during the late '60s, that a lot of people said, "Oh, look, it's going to be like a French Revolution, and we're going to be taking over, and this is our moment." Even in those times, far more radical times, it didn't manifest into a revolution. And people like to fetishize that period as though it were something really, really great, and it's somehow something that had potential to show us that we had potential for a revolution, which never took place. The fact is, a lot of the people who are Marxists today are millennials. A lot of them are people that even born in the early 90s that don't really know that the whole thing that went down during the 60s was not as radical as history likes to make it out to be. There was no threat of revolution breaking out in the United States or in France during that time. And the same thing is, it's not going to happen now. This is not going to be a revolution. This is going to be another forcing of concessions, which actually happens more often in France than it does in a lot of places. I think one of the things that needs to be kept in mind here is that there's a lot of fascists getting elected in France. And the timing of this is no coincidence, or the fact that it's happening, right across Europe. One of the oldest third worldist lines, or one of the most, strongly held, is the fact that when the advanced countries, in this case the first world countries, go into crisis, they turn to fascism, not revolution. They demand the old ways back. They do not demand a step forward. They actually demand a step back, which in many cases, can't even be done. But they certainly will demand it. They want it to go back to the way it was before. And I think that's what a lot of people are forgetting here, is that historical trend. Because as angry as these people are, I would like to see some evidence that they're Marxists and that they're trying to carry out revolution. They're not. It's just popular anger. And they seem to be perhaps of the opinion that Marxists can somehow lead them towards revolution, which is not going to happen because that's not what they're doing. They're not looking to tear down the entire system and build a new one. They want concessions. They want things to go back to the way they were before they sucked. They're not looking for a whole new world. Now, what bothers me is that this image that there is a new French Revolution is being projected. And a lot of people in the Third World, Marxists in the Third World, think that's what's actually happening. They're believing that there really is a revolution happening in a first world country when it's absolutely not. So they get this wrong idea, and then they stand up saying all these things, and they're going to be disappointed. Once again, they're thinking this is going to be some kind of moment where there's a change and they start getting some kind of assistance to carry out revolution in their own countries. But that's not going to happen. What really bothers me is the fact that third world people, the people who actually need revolution, are being misled about what's going on right now. And frankly, that's really not fair to them. So I think that's something that we should all keep in mind in this situation, that this is not another French Revolution. Because honestly, if you really believe that it is a French Revolution, and that this is the time when capitalism is going to be destroyed in France, prove me wrong. And that was the first MRN podcast. This is Jason Unruhe saying thank you for listening.